Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, an inspired conversation space between Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner on the journey of motherhood through the common thread of parenting, relationship, and sexuality as a path to consciousness.
We keep our conversations honest, our experiences real, and our philosophies exploratory. We believe that in order to raise incredible humans, we first have to raise ourselves. We know that in order to rock the family, you've got to nourish the mother. If you are here, you care about paving a path of conscious and intentional motherhood, connected with yourself and your gifts, and also illuminating your children in theirs so we may raise more whole humans who can impact this world in a more humane way.
If you desire to integrate your learnings practically and supportively, head on over to bridgetwood.life or julietenner.love to go deeper. And for all live-streamed pre-release podcasts and all our free content, head over to our free Facebook group, Nourishing the Mother with Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner. We are Julie Tenner and Bridget Wood, and we are so grateful you're here.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner. And today's podcast is creating a family holiday that actually feels like a holiday.
And we say this because when you're going on a holiday with your family and you're, hoping for this delicious, relaxing, nourishing time, according to all of the magazines and everything that you see that looks delightful, sometimes the reality is stark in contrast to that, because you take your family and all of your family challenges with you, and you take your mothering with you. So in this podcast, I really wanted to unpack what it looks like to create a family holiday where you actually feel like you've had a break, and it's not simply just picking yourself up and your family and putting yourself in another environment where you do everything anyway.
Yeah. I'm interested to hear what you have to say with this, because this podcast has come off of the back of you being away with your family.
Yes.
Do you call it caravanning, campervanning? What do you call it?
I don't even know. Yeah, we take a camper away.
Okay. Campering, just like Barbie.
Yeah.
Because when we traveled the NT and the conversations that we had in the podcast post that is, I'm not sure that those two things can exist together. So I'm interested to see where we go with this podcast and what advice and freedom and permission and ideas all of our listeners get on this process around how we can pre-plan, prepare mentally, physically, practically, so that we set ourselves up for the best possible experience.
Yeah, great. Because I think what you've honed in on is what I want to get to, which is really that we create pockets of nourishment that fill all of the other parts where it is work, right? As opposed to it feeling like the hard slog all of the time.
Yeah. I get that. I get the pockets thing. I totally do. I just often have had conversations with mums that are like, why do we even say holidays? It's not a fucking holiday when you are a parent in charge of children in another environment. That is not a holiday. Why do we call it that? Because it's a completely different, like if you or I were to go away together, we'd have a holiday.
Well, that's a holiday. Yeah.
Or if we were to go away with our partners, we'd have a holiday. But going away with our family is something else. It's an experience.
Yes.
But I'm not sure about the vibes of a holiday.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it.
Yeah, let's do it. All right. Number one, you want to start with stop comparisonitis.
Yes. So this I mean this specifically in terms of self-checking your attachment to another person's experience in your family. So what can sometimes happen when we really value parenting, we value family, and we've got this idyllic vision of this holiday, it can become a little insidious. We can become attached to the experience our child has, or attached to the experience that our partner has. And we want it to be perfect and connected. And, we've got this low level anxiety about how much we've spent. So then, they have to have a good time because I've spent all this money. That can create more problems for us, because instead of letting them have their experience, however that experience is, we have got our tentacles into that and want to shape that. And therefore, when it doesn't go the way we want it to, or they don't behave the way we think they should, we struggle, or we're getting angry or guilty, or, name the emotion, right? And so part of it is, yes, I'll help create this experience for our family, but how you choose to experience that, I can't control. I can influence, but I can't control it. And so we, practice letting our child be, in inverted commas, ungrateful, or we let our child have the meltdown in the place where we had this perfect vision of it being amazing, right? Because if we're unwilling for that reality, then we create kind of this very narrow vision of what a holiday, or what a good holiday can be. Because it has to look perfect or feel perfect.
It has to look like a set of rules.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you reckon we stop comparison on our holiday? You mentioned in there attachments on our child's experience, but I imagine comparison goes beyond the attachment that we have to our child having a particular experience, but would morph into, oh, well, Bridget or Julie had this type of a holiday. My neighbor down the road did this type of holiday. I saw it on Instagram and Facebook. And how come we're not having that type of holiday? Or we should have this type of experience, and then crushing when we don't.
Yeah.
So that, I think, is what you're honing in on, is this sense of where we go, that experience is what we're expecting and setting ourselves up for. And when reality comes crashing down from that, we no longer feel like we can hold this holiday experience, or that it's of any value to us. Or
we create almost like a depression, right? Because if we spend our whole holiday comparing it with like the family who has the better stuff, or the more, like functional in our perception family dynamic, then we're constantly measuring ourselves, and therefore sliding into shame or guilt or judgment that we're not that. And so you actually spend the whole holiday not living in the present of the holiday, but living in the future comparison of a potential experience that's not yours, but of course is not true, because you're only seeing a sliver of that, right?
Oh my God, that's so good.
Right? Like you're only seeing a tiny, tiny bit of that person, that family, and you're making a whole thing about it.
Yeah.
But just notice, like, I mean, of course I do that. We'd all do it as humans, all of us. But it's just going, oh, I'm doing that thing. Oh, I'm comparing. Oh, what am I using that for? How could I be here now? How could I be in this experience with my child? How can I feel and be with more of this?
Why do you think we use comparison?
Well, sometimes comparison can create a drive, because we can, in the feeling of lack, the comparison opens up. It can give us energy, and it can help us decide, well, I'm going to go work harder, or I'm going to really practice, parenting the way I want to, because I'm inspired. Even though I'm jealous, I'm also inspired by what I see there. So we can use it to fuel us. And I think it's just trying to find that sweet spot between something that we perceive that can fuel us versus something that we perceive that we go into collapse with.
Yeah. And just watching that seesaw balance. Yeah,
because sometimes it's ever so tenuous, that balance.
Yeah. And you have to be able to, like, I was going to say, it's not self-regulate, it's like self-manage, isn't it?
Yeah. And
it's like social media, isn't it? You open your phone, you're on Instagram, you're like, oh, I'm inspired, I love it, I'm vibing it. And then all of a sudden your feels start to change, and you're like, oh God, look at them. Oh God, I'm not doing that. Oh God, I don't have that thing. Gee, I wish I did. Gee, I wish my partner did. Gee, I wish I looked like that. Gee, and all of a sudden you've gone, and you're like, stop, switch off the phone, get it, put it down.
Step away.
There has to be this kind of self-management, though, doesn't it, around the internal state?
Yes.
Because it's the monkey mind that's then driving your experience, rather than you authentically driving that experience.
And to really know, like, am I in the mental headspace that should be doing that right now? Or if I'm already edgy or pissed with my partner, or I'm already off my kids, is it healthy for me right now to consume that kind of content, or to constantly be around this family that I've built a story is perfect? Or is it just entrenching this belief that I've got that I'm now stuck in?
Yeah. Essentially, is your comparison working for you or against you?
Yeah.
And if it's working against you, it's not a truth. It's just a belief system. It's a mind state that's become a body state because you're practicing that pathway over and over and over. So how do you just get off the train? Just step off it and come back to yourself. That is recognizing when comparison, it's time to stop, girlfriend.
Yeah. Rip that Band-Aid off,
Yeah.
Pull the plug.
Put the phone down. Yes. Okay, number 2 is a heads up.
Yeah. So we can forget as adults that like we're okay with spontaneity or we're cool with however this rolls. But sometimes our kids are not, or they just don't have enough practice in going into new and different environments. And so the things that are easy for us are not so easy for them. So I notice this probably the most with my 3-year-old because it's the third time I've done 3. I sometimes just think, she'll be right. She'll just flow with everyone. And then she'll get really wobbly because I realize she doesn't have a detail that if she had that detail, she would feel more safe and connected and able to roll with stuff. So it's simply just, this is going to be a long drive. It's going to feel like sitting down and watching whatever movie, right? She doesn't know what 2 hours feels like. So it's going to feel like we're sitting down and we're watching Frozen or whatever. We're going to be going around lots of corners. You might feel a bit sick. So what we're going to do is we're going to look out the window, like, things that we can do to set them up. Give them a heads up on what's coming. We're going to stay at this place because sometimes we can even forget how to tell our kids how long we're staying somewhere, for example. We're going to stay at this place for 2 sleeps. So we're going to wake up here 2 times. And even just those little details can help them adjust and flow better with change.
Yeah, totally. Sorry, I was just having 5,000 thought processes then because this is one of the things that I'm still honing and refining as a parent. And I think I'm pretty good at it. But what I've recognized is having a child with neurodiversity is one of her key structures is forward planning, that we have to be able to write down and go through at a pace that her body can understand and digest. She has quite a slow processing speed. So we have to have visual cues for a week ahead of whatever life is. And because we have such a big, busy family, it's actually rarely consistent, particularly on holidays. And, whether you're on holiday at home or school holidays or you're on a holiday somewhere else, there are times when there's complete lack of consistency. So she's a kid who thrives beautifully in predictability. And the second there's change, she is so dysregulated. She has a huge amount of difficulty processing what's changed, how it's changed, what her role is, what the expectations are, and that gets her into a complete fight and flight response.
Yeah.
So the way that I don't want to say avoid, but the way that we best manage this slow processing speed is by really mapping out very clearly what's happening a week ahead, and we walk her through that. And same things for, we're just having a home holiday these holidays, and we've had lots of unpredictable things. I've had surgery that's totally changed stuff. We all got COVID, which completely changed our Christmas, and we've just stayed home doing really not very much. But to be able to plan it out and go, right, tomorrow we're cleaning the sheds, or tomorrow I need you to do chores, or tomorrow we're cleaning up your wardrobe. Just having that amount of notice makes her all of a sudden get on board that thing rather than fighting me on that thing.
Yeah, which is so helpful, isn't it? Because I think our conditioning can sometimes lead us to seeing our child's dysregulation as misbehavior or as, something to be stopped.
Yeah.
Because certainly like my middle child, her dysregulation can come out as aggression. And so, in my conditioning, aggression is something that is stopped and bad and like naughty, right? And so just recognizing, how could more setup here, or how can more preparation help her responses, is actually creates so much more ease as a parent, right? Because what happens is if we see our child through the lens of misbehavior, then we are then in conflict. We don't like the edginess within us. We feeling this disconnection. And sometimes we then go into guilt when we realize later, oh, that actually was just support that she needed, not my judgment.
Yeah, totally. I'm even thinking when we were on holidays in the NTM, we knew we were going to do a big walk or something like that, even just having the conversation and holding space for the, I don't want to. Yeah, I know. But we are. It's coming tomorrow. Yeah. We're leaving at 9. You know, like even just on holidays, having the pre-work set up for the expectations of something, I would say most notably that they're not going to want to do.
Yeah. Yep. It's just as much. And so that's why I like this sense of, oh, you know, I won't tell them the thing that they're afraid of, or I won't tell them the hard things.
Yes.
It's a bit of a, I think you actually just, you're intensifying the problem. You're just pushing the problem into
Yes. Totally. I totally think that too. This podcast is brought to you by what we have going on in the world that you can jump in on. And Bridgie, what's there for you?
What's coming up in my world is the Reimagining Motherhood Mentorship. So that's a 3-month immersion to inspire your mothering, create space and intention for your own desires and growth in your parenting, relationship or business, and move forward beyond what feels in the way. Find out more about that at bridgetwood.life. And you, Jules?
You can grab my sexy Christmas date. So what you get is an easy to follow sexy and sensual couples date that comes with a 20-minute guided tantric date workshop video that you get to follow along, press play and follow along. You can gift your partner a special experience or gift each other. Comes with a downloadable PDF guide and a whole heap of sexy playlists. And you can find out more about that at julietenner.love/sexy Christmas. So, which actually leads on perfectly to our point number 3, which is expect wobbles and use your toolkit.
Yeah. So you may have developed your own toolkit with particular children. I know you and I have, Jules. But what I mean there is a toolkit not only in terms of co-regulation tools with your child, but also knowing, this means both parents now can no longer go hammer and tong on like the setup or the pack up or like the organizing. One parent really needs to bring all of their energy into the parenting role, and the other parent needs to understand that and be clear on what's happening. Because because otherwise, if you don't do that, then the child can feel like an irritant, which intensifies their dysregulation because they can feel your lack of presence. And so this was happening to us a couple of times in the pack up, where my middle child, it really like was pinching me. She couldn't make eye contact, very dysregulated. And so I just had to, even though my husband was in a bit of a rush, I just had to pull right back and say to him, look, I just need to be with her right now. And it was simply just her in her car seat and me really gently stroking her legs with my fingernails just to bring her back into her body. And so 5 minutes of that process of really, intentional touch with her was enough to help her come back online and back into balance. But if I didn't recognize the need for that, then I would have continued to resist her behavior, label it, judge it, increase my irritation and my husband's irritation, and then the family holiday that was supposed to be fun and connected is not, right?
Yeah, totally. I would add into that the other way that we do it. Nick and I do go hammer and tongs. We actually don't. I like your idea of there needs to be one parent, like having clearly defined parent roles is an interesting conversation to have as a couple. If you're on a holiday setup, I think that that's worthy and worthwhile, that going, if shit hits the fan, this is your role, this is my role. Yeah. And then no partner's got these like feelings towards anyone else. Yes. Right? But I also think we're a big family and we have a high expectation on everyone in the family contributing to whatever the family needs, knowing that beast of whatever the family needs shifts and change. Sometimes that's going to be, I need you to go and play with your sister. Sometimes that's going to be, I need you to go and, plug in the water for the camper. Yeah. Sometimes it's going to be, whatever, that zeitgeist changes. Sometimes it's we're all on team pack up. We're all on team setup. So the way that we do that in a big family is if there's a kid that's struggling, it's because they don't have responsibility in a clearly defined role. So we give them, everybody, wherever we are, has very defined roles. So for instance, when we were the NT, everybody knew when we rocked up to somewhere, this was your job. And it was almost like hands in, 1, 2, 3, go. And everybody did their job. We were there. It's pack up time. 1, 2, 3, go. Everybody knows their role. And that's all the way down to my, she was 5-year-old, all the way up to my 16-year-old. Just the level of responsibility in the job changes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I guess I would ask where that child's given that responsibility and seems to still not be able to do it.
Yes.
That's kind of what I'm leaning to. Like, if they've got the responsibility and it should be simple and they can't do it and they're struggling.
Yes.
We leave them with their struggle, and sometimes we will, right? Like sometimes we're not going to be able to meet their struggle.
Yeah.
Because we want to just get the hell out of there. But it's when we can we see the value in meeting that, knowing that if we meet it, then, everything's kind of pretty smooth after that.
Yeah, totally. 100%. So that's why I was saying I think it's worth having both of those strategies. One is what's the setup and the expectation on who's doing this job.
Yeah.
And 2 being, right, as opposed to kids sit over there. I'm not saying this is what you did, but as opposed to, I see it a lot, kids sit over there while mum and dad do that blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Is going, they're all so capable and they have such a desire to contribute and to be a contributing member of family life, which leads on to society life, that leads on to community life. Like they are humans that have a huge desire to be found purposeful and meaningful. They do. And it doesn't matter how old they are, they have that desire as a basic human need.
Well, you see it with 2-year-olds who want to sweep. They see what you do and they want to contribute to what you do.
Right. So as opposed to sit over there while we do the hard yards is just, okay, how could I just in my own brain just make this system a little bit more pulled apart and go, what are the things that they can do? Or, and that's what I was about to say before, I even create things. So, I will buy a particular, I don't know, I'm picking something out of my head right now, cutlery drawer, and it's their job to make sure that all of the knives and forks, we have the right number and they're clean and they're all in their right home. Now, a 5-year-old will sit there and do that sorting and polishing and cleaning with their own little washing bucket happily for an hour, I would say.
Yeah.
So I always think there's a way, and I'm always thinking, like, for my different kids who need sensory feedback, what's a job like that also meets their sensory feedback needs, so they don't need me to do that for them?
Yeah.
How can she be, she has her backpack of, Lola has always with her a backpack of sensory toys. So wherever she is, she can pull one out and she can be doing it to help her regulate while she's doing the thing. That I'll give Gwen things that have to do with water and soap and scrubbing brushes. So she's scrubbing her hands and she's getting feedback from the water. And, I just think we can also, from a parenting level, we can look at what we're doing with a little bit more cleverness. Yeah. To offer our children opportunities to be a contributing member of whatever is happening. So I would just put that in there too. How could this look different?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's such a good reminder.
All right. Number 4, which is our last one, is hold the vision, trust the process.
Yeah. So this is where if you feel like maybe you've got this great day planned and we had this awesome day planned and we were pretty sick of having, so we had 3 kids and 2 dogs, and by this day, whatever day it was, 5 or something, we're pretty sick of having 2 dogs all of the time, because it meant that one of us would be always with the dogs on the side of the river, and one of us was responsible for 3 kids, which is not very relaxing.
Yeah.
So this one day we thought, okay, let's just pop the dogs in a dog kennel, which we found and was great. And then, of course, we dropped them off and then it starts raining. And we'd had this great day planned, on the lake up on Mount Buffalo. And we could, feel that, idyllic vision slipping away of our perfect day with no dogs and all the fun water things we were now no longer going to be able to do. And I could just sense, particularly my son, getting more and more gruff and frustrated with how it wasn't working out. And, he'd really gone down the spiral of this is shit. It's this whole holiday is shit. Like, you know, you know that.
Oh yeah, I do know that. 100% I know that.
Anyway, so I was like, no, like it's gonna come good. I'm like, it's okay, that it's gonna rain a lot now. And I just kept raining and raining and raining. Like, so it's gonna open up. I just know it's gonna be right after.
It's just awful, you poor things.
And so anyway, like it turned out to be a beautiful afternoon, and everything that I wanted to happen that day happened, you know, like, but I was like, it was that moment where you could either, like, I knew I sensed that like tipping point between like, I can double down on like my vision, even though it looks nothing like it, or I can just like join my son in his like, you know, sob story about how shit it was. And so I just thought it was such a good reminder, like, you know, how am I going to respond to this?
Totally. Yeah. And so how did you hold that?
So in his experience, I could notice like part of me was like, oh, come on, like just get over it. Like it's just, it is what it is. But I was like, no, like I remember as a child, like, you know, you feel everything so fully, right? And so as a child, I was like, no, like let him have this, let him be in the grumps, right? Like let him like be annoyed. Like, yeah, like I get it. You're frustrated. Yeah. And just allow him to be annoyed, knowing that he'll come out the other side of that frustration without me having to lecture him around it. And the more powerful teacher is him reflecting on coming out of it, and how actually all the things that were shit about the day were not at all, was a more powerful and potent teacher for him than me letting his irritation irritate me and therefore making it want to stop.
I just love that. That's so beautiful, because you're totally right. The more powerful teacher is always going to be their own experience.
Yeah. The practice is, how can I just let the feelings be there?
Yeah, totally. I love it. So what I'm going to do is give you a quick recap on our 4 points for creating a family holiday that actually feels like a holiday. Number 1 is stop comparison. Number 2 is create a heads up for your kids. How can you prepare them? Number 3 is expect the wobbles and make sure you're clear on what your toolkit is that you're using, so then you're not caught short. And number 4, hold the vision, but trust the process. And as Bridgie so beautifully said, the more powerful teacher is letting our child have their own experience.
Yes. So that's our wrap up. What have you got going on in the world, Jules?
I have Sanctum that is coming up for opening, which is my women's circle and facilitator coach training. So you can find out more about that at julietenner.love. And you, Bridgie?
All things reimagining motherhood. So it's really the space to inspire your mothering and your own growth along the motherhood journey. So find out more about that at bridgetwood.life. Remember to nourish the woman, to rock the family.
And we'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
Thank you so much for listening. We literally couldn't do this without you. Please share this podcast with anyone you think it would be medicine for.
If you desire to integrate your learnings practically and supportively into your life, then head on over to bridgetwood.life or julietenner.love to go deeper.
And if you feel like giving back a little to this free content, please rate us on iTunes or Facebook, all of which helps the podcast reach more mamas who need this type of tonic for the soul.